board, the cornerback. So
See, and I would have been okay with that too. Just
it would have been good.
He was like Allen was the big question. Whereas like if you have a guy like Chubb that falls to you, you can't be like, oh nope, I'm not gonna take him. Like that's just dumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are good to go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was embarrassing. That was like an episode of Bully Beatdown, but the bully won. That game there on Saturday. So in today's episode, we're going to recap the game, preview the Chargers, and we're going to fill you in on all of your Denver Broncos news. And that is the exact reason why I cannot headbang, because I got dizzy as crap when I was doing that.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes too.
Oh, that was miserable. All right, well, we want to welcome everybody in on this Christmas episode of the MHRT podcast. We are live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. On YouTube, make sure you hit those thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you know every time we go live or anytime we upload a video. On Twitter, you can follow us at MHRT Podcast. Leave us questions, concerns, comments, yell at people. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. On Facebook, like and follow as well. And on Twitch, you can follow us there too. We also want to make sure that we remind you that we do, aside from going live, we post recap videos throughout the week. We also post after game reaction videos. So just make sure you got those notifications turned on so that every time we upload a video, you know exactly when it pops up. All right, so that Bills game, that was super amazing. Bit of football right there. So that like initial reactions, that game was frustrating because like you watch it and you're not like offensive wise, you're not really seeing a lot that's going wrong. We're just not getting it done until you go back and you watch. And then, and we'll get into that. But obviously the big thing from the Bills game was just the defense finally showed that injuries take a toll on the defense because we just got smoked throughout that entire game.
Yeah. Before I give my 2 cents about the game, I just want to welcome Mr. Boggins onto the show. Thanks for coming on.
I was getting there.
Company. I know. I wanted to thank him myself.
Making quick entrance.
Yeah, but basically, you know what? Even though we, as Broncos fans, really were hoping for an upset, hoping that the same Drew Lock we saw against Carolina would carry over into this game. That's what we were hoping to see, but at the same time, we kind of saw the defense that's been held by tape damn near since that Carolina game just literally break in front of our eyes. In the first half, they were okay. They weren't the greatest or the best, but in the second half, after that Drew Lock sack, it just it collapsed. There was really no communication between offense, defense, and coach. There was frustration between Bradley Chubb and Shelby Harris, even though they fixed it a minute later. They hugged it out. But you could tell that the animosity is starting to build up in Denver, and it's not just with the offense and the defense like it's been the last couple seasons. It's it's within the same division of within the defense, within the offense. And this is something that I feel that Vic Fangio as a head coach needs to get in front of, because what you don't want to do is you don't want this to spiral out of control and then you start losing the locker room. Vic Fangio right now has one of the hardest jobs that any coach in his position has. And in terms of, being in charge of a team that's not in playoff contention, and you have to keep that locker room united, because you don't want to go into the off season with guys arguing with social media or arguing with other coaches, or just not being happy in general. And like this game, the defense in that second half, they just pretty much it's like they weren't even trying. They didn't care. They let Devin Singletary run for, 70-something yards. The offense, I was hoping to see more. I don't think there was a single deep pass this entire game. It seemed like Drew Lock went back into his more restricted look in terms of, check downs and short passes. And he got lucky that 2 defenders dropped passes, or his numbers and his QBR rating would have been a whole lot much more worse. So I just hope that whatever funk Denver got themselves into, that they can shake out of it real quick.
Yeah. And see, now, normally this would be the point in time where Christy would come in and attack me or yell at me or call me names or something like that. But she's still on vacation. So we have brought in with us again a very special guest. Mr. Boggins is filling in for Christy while she's on vacation. Thank you, Mr. Boggins, for stepping in. See, no problem, I had a plan at Don.
There we go.
I know. I beat you to it.
Preemptive.
All right, Boggins, what do you think? What's your take on the game?
I mean,
well, first of all, really,
what? Oh, go for
I was going to say, flashing blue lights really does concern Mike. He's had quite a history. So keep it up.
Melvin Gordon went in the opposite direction when he saw
it.
I mean, it did. We had orange-colored glasses going into it, but let's be honest. Did we really think anything other was going to happen? I mean, it was a waiver wire defense versus one of the top in the league, and then an offense that is. I mean, it's pretty much like early Cam Newton, but can throw. So and then especially when they start running spread offense against your cornerbacks that you don't have, and you put a rookie. Probably one of the best rookie cornerbacks so far, but that's not saying a whole bunch. But against one of the best receivers, or the leading receiver in the league right now, and he just made him look ridiculous out there to the point where when he finally stopped him, he patted him on the head. He literally patted him on the head like that was a good one. That it was just a full route clinic pretty much for the Bills. And I mean, I didn't really expect a whole lot. I thought we would maybe hold him because Josh Allen can be a Ben Roethlisberger, where he could either be the hero or the zero real quick. But it turned into a hero real quick. So unfortunately, that's just the way it panned out.
Yeah, it's and then couple it with Ojemudia getting kicked out of the game in the third quarter. Like he just wanted, so a thin, razor thin.
Trey Marshall, who you didn't even know we still had left.
I know, unbelievable. They were pulling people out of the stands. But just going back to what Adon was saying about the defense and I'm not too concerned, about the camaraderie or animosity carrying over to next year. I think the players are smart enough to put it into perspective that this has been a ridiculous season. The injuries have been just insane. And I know that all the other teams are playing in the same, under the same restrictions, but when you have a team this young on both sides of the ball, and then coupled with all the injuries to the veteran leadership, I think it's just going to be very, very tough. One of the nice things that we did see this week from the defense was that Justin Simmons and Bradley Chubb both got named to the Pro Bowl, which was nice to see. Especially Chubb's reaction when he couldn't stop being emotional. It was really genuine. I loved seeing that.
Well, it seems like anytime I start making a comment or start talking, we switch subjects. So we're gonna grab some of these. Dave Darlington, what's up? Landon's in. Don, you're going to have to help me with that one.
It's one of my sister's friends.
That doesn't help me. Dave is like in your look there, Glenn. And then he says that he's kind of glad he was on the road and didn't have to watch the game. Good. Yeah. You should be glad that you did not have to watch that game.
Didn't start bad.
The second half, anyway.
Yeah. We played them real well. Not real well, but I was really happy with Drew Lock's successful 2-minute drill at the end of that. That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the story of the season is like, you've got those 2-minute drills or this one drive or that one pass where it's amazing and it's awesome. And you're like, yes, that's what we want to see. And then like, it's sketchy the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Against the Panthers, Drew Lock looked good the entire game. This game, he did not look that good. And I understand it was against the Bills, but the Bills defense is not quite as good as the Panthers defense. And you saw what he was able to do against the Panthers. So I get it. With the Bills being up so much, they had to change the game plan and throw more, which isn't necessarily what he's been good at the past couple games. But he was just so back and forth in that game. Like, it was more of the, you'd get a good throw in or a good read, and then he'd go back to, there were two throws he made on the sidelines that were pretty darn close to being picks.
Mhm.
So, it kind of goes back to, he shows flashes, but the rest of the time it's just not clicking or not happening. I mean, my stance hasn't changed. I still think, they're going to carry him into next year, and he's going to get. I think he gets the first 4 games, maybe more. But they've got to get a quarterback to back him up just in case, because you never know. We don't want to be in a situation this same time next year. Where
but in terms of the momentum, and I am going to switch just slightly, but the Fairness in the kicking game really killed the momentum. Did hurt. Yeah. Merry Christmas, Christy. Absolutely.
Pat McAfee for recommending that, dude.
Yeah. Taylor,
that was amazing.
So I mean, who knows what could have carried over into the second half if that field goal and the extra point had been made. All of a sudden, it's a relatively tight game.
I guarantee that definitely hurt morale for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I get that, but still, that doesn't take away from, it looked like halfway through the third quarter, the defense was just like, screw it, I'm done. I don't care anymore. Because that's what it looked like. But it kind of makes sense. I mean, you got 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th stringers in there getting smoked on every play. Like, I'd be a little ticked off too. Like,
maybe you just thought they were acting like that, but they're really just not great.
They're really just not that good.
Yeah. Aside from the 49ers, the Broncos are the only other team that were just so decimated by injury that, like Mr. Boggins said at the start of this podcast, it was, a waiver wire defense. So, you got to give credit to guys like Vic Fangio and even Kyle Shanahan for just trying to, make do with what they have. And unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to replace the star power that, was on paper going into the season. If Denver would have had all their starters from, week 1, we'd be sitting here telling a much different story. The same thing with San Francisco. And that goes to saying the same thing for any team that's, going to the playoffs right now. If Kansas City didn't have Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, if Buffalo didn't have Josh Allen and so forth. So one thing that most people fail to realize, and when I say most people, I'm saying people that aren't Broncos fans, is that they don't put that into perspective. Like this loss against Buffalo, it was a terrible loss. It was say what you want, Bills Mafia. They came and they played, and they're a great contender team, but they also don't give credit to Denver for saying, we won, but we beat a team that wasn't at 100%. So I kind of feel that Denver gets kind of shafted in that regard, because if it would have been the other way around and it would have been, Denver outbeating the Bills like that, I'm pretty sure they would have had some type of different reaction. And so far this whole season, really, Denver's just been, I don't know what they did to piss off the commissioner, that it's almost feeling like, the what's that old saying, the redheaded stepchild. So because that's just what it's starting to feel. And
it's the owner fiasco.
Yeah, the owner fiasco too. And that's another issue, the fact that we don't have an owner, and John Elway and Joe Ellis have to basically play stepfather until the management can get all their ducks in a row. Because and hopefully that's another issue that gets resolved soon, because I don't think Denver can go into next season in this type of shape and with the ownership in limbo.
I just really worry about next season though, because I feel like it's such a weird limbo place that we're in, and then everyone's talking about it, but I don't think there's going to be many changes next year at all. And I feel like this lull is just going to kind of fade into next year. And I just really hope that doesn't delve into the players a little bit where they're just like use injuries as an excuse or use whatever it's going on and just get complacent and then be like expect themselves to be so much better next year and then they get kicked in the teeth straight off next year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we keep hearing that like the ownership thing probably will get solved next season, but that's not a guarantee. So, you've got all this frustration, and I think that's where a lot of the fights come from, is that you have so many things like the ownership problem, the GM problem, the coaching problem, whether it's offense or the nasty getting the defensive back coordinator or trying to figure out what the heck's wrong with the offense. Is it the coach? Is it the quarterback coach? Like there's so many issues, but then again, like there are issues that could potentially be fixed in an off season. Depending on who you go with in the draft and what you decide to do with coaches.
Right. Like my Broncos Christmas wish is new ownership. And, for the longest time, everybody wanted the Bolin family to continue Pat's legacy, but it is absolutely a disaster. And the fact what Chris Hernandez mentioned in the comments, Chris said, we don't have an owner to go to bat for us. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, not only did we not have one established owner that could go and petition the league to make changes. I mean, there's no way if we had a solid ownership that the Saints game would have worked out the way it had. But not only do we not get any sort of
push.
I don't want to say even favorable. I don't even want to say just normal, like treatment. I feel like
equal shake.
There's punishment going on, and the team is facing that. And I agree with Mr. Boggins. I think if some of these things are not cleared up, especially on the ownership side, that it's going to be more of the same. I mean, it's going to be an uphill climb. The fact is they're putting policies in that they're going to fine teams if they don't get these ownership things squared away. And these kids can't seem to agree on anything. Sell the team, pocket a ton of money. You're set for generations, and just let us be on our merry way. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if Bezos buys, we might get new uniforms.
It sounds like the plan eventually was for Brittany to take over. And like I hate saying this because I love Pat Bolin and I love the legacy he set up, but I would not mind having an owner that had a whole lot more money than the Bolins had, just because then you don't have to worry about guarantees and coach's salary and that I think that's one of the reasons. I think it's one of the big reasons why there's not even any question on whether Fangio's going to be back, because if they let Fangio go, they still got to pay him. Plus, they'd have to pay the next coach that they hire. They don't have the money for that. So, as much as I love the Bolins, I think it's time to let somebody else with some deeper pockets take it.
I don't think at all. Sorry, go for it.
A team that's worth $3 billion potentially. How do they not have any money? It's just crazy.
I don't think anything will change until at least after next season, though. I think they're not even going back to court until.
Well, but didn't the NFL just make that rule about ownership where one person has to own or have a majority of the ownership, or the team can get fined like $10 million or something like that? Am I way off on that?
I'm not
sure. They don't have any owner right now, so.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
No one's accepting that bill.
That's what I'm saying. If I think the NFL took it, I could have sworn that.
Yeah,
Government wrote a story on that. So it's like it's kind of like the NFL saying, okay, you've got this offseason to figure it out, or we're going to fine you.
Yeah. I mean, they cut Melvin Gordon. They can afford it.
See, and I don't know if they're going to cut Melvin Gordon. It's so, because okay, so you came into the beginning of the season and you're like, there's no way they get rid of Philip Lindsay. Well, if you look at this season, you could make an argument for why you don't keep Philip Lindsay and you keep Melvin Gordon.
With the salary cap. Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying with the salary cap going to be reducing anyways, they might be trying to cut. And with their whole ownership thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they just try to start saving money as many ways as possible. I mean, you could pick up another running back in the like a Harris and Naeem Harris, not Najee Harris. Sorry, Najee Harris from as like a miniature Derrick Henry in like the second round or whatever, or a Chuba Hubbard. Anything like that would be able to save your money, and then you get rid of Casey, you get rid of Bouye, because why not? And Gordon, because of the whole DUI thing, I think you'd be able to cut loss with him through the contract. So, I mean, you could be saving yourself a lot of money, and you're already. I mean, if you're Elway, what do you have to lose right now? Like, are you really trying to push for a Super Bowl? You know that that's not going to happen, or are you just trying to save as much money as possible? So,
well, and I think this goes to, Pat Shermer with the offensive coordinator. We can all see that Philip Lindsay is not getting used properly. He's not one of those guys that you run in the middle every single down. Like, he's just not. And I think that's one of the reasons why he continues to get injured during the season. I mean, he's been hurt, 3 times this season? So as much as I love the guy, you got to wonder, like, is he a fit for Shermer? Is he a fit for the NFL with the injury history? Like, I love him and I want to keep him, but I don't know if he fits better than Melvin Gordon does.
Right. Yeah. And one thing I think the team actually has done a good job, and Elway has done a good job with, is actually maintaining the salaries and not getting in deep. You've seen a lot of the other teams signing these players to these massive deals, even just this offseason, even knowing that the salary cap was likely to go down next year, and they're going to put themselves in a tough position. But the Broncos really did budget pretty well. And like Marcus said, you get rid of 3 or 4 of these players. I mean, just 3 of the players on the defense, K-Jack, Bouye, and Casey is over $35 million. And then, be interesting to see about the Vaughn restructure, if that's going to happen. And there was an interesting thing in the news conference. Fangio was specifically asked about Gordon, and if the team wished that he had just taken his punishment now instead of extending the court date so he could finish out the season, and now that any sort of suspension would start next year. And Vic's like, that, unfortunately, we have no say in that. That's his representation, and that's his lawyers, his reps, and unfortunately, we don't have any impact on that decision. And I think that could actually be the nail in his coffin with the Broncos, if they can get out of any sort of guarantees with some sort of behavior clauses or criminal clauses or whatnot. Just the fact that he was willing to potentially be out the first 3 games of next year it really hurts the team, and I think that could be the end of Gordon.
I mean, if you look at it from his perspective, of course he's going to take the later on, because he's trying to get his stat line as built as possible, because he knows this is going to affect his open market, and he's just trying to rack it up so he can at least have some sort of leverage next year, which I don't think he'll be. I think we'll just probably cut ties with him, because, I mean, he's been good, but like, it's definitely serviceable, definitely be able to running back. Really, I legitimately think we might go into the draft looking for a running back with how we could save with Gordon, depending on what we're going to do with Lindsey, if we're even going to keep Royce because he's just a jag. So who knows? Yeah.
Now, when you see Gordon running into traffic and being tackled by 3 guys, I mean, aren't you immediately thinking that he's going to fumble the ball? Because I am. I mean, that's the first.
Anytime he runs, it's like, even if he's got the ball or not, I think he's going to fumble.
Even if he doesn't have the ball.
Even if he doesn't have the ball, it's like, oh crap, he's going to fumble.
And then Drew fumbles and he doesn't have the ball.
Yeah, that
that
play where he got hit from behind. I've watched that play 100 times, and I just don't know how the hell Philip Lindsay runs into Garrett Bowles, and both of those guys miss Tre'Davious White, and Tre'Davious White literally does a giant circle around the entire O-line and comes back and hits Julock. So,
but I mean, that was more of a coverage sack. So I mean, like, and I was, after that, the fumble that Julock had in the last game, with the Panthers, I was looking on Twitter trying to find those people that were like, oh, that's not Drew's fault, somebody else made him fumble. But I mean, the offensive line was blocking pretty good. It was they held who they were supposed to. He ran around for a good 3 seconds.
Yeah,
then he got hit from behind and fumbled the ball. Like that's on Drew.
He had room to run. I don't know why it looked like he was trying to force the ball when he stopped just to try to stay behind the line of scrimmage to throw the ball, which I understand on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like if you're going to do that, you kind of need to develop over time, eyes in the back of your head and kind of try to, have a sense of, somebody could come and hit me from behind. And what he did was when the second he stopped, that's when he gave Tre'Davious White enough time to hit him from behind.
I mean, there's calls for that. Like, that's why the offensive linemen are also trained to, like, call out something. You could have a secret word or whatever. If you're getting pressure, if you're getting man on, you got to call it out. Like, there's just, like, so many different circumstantial things that I think play into it. But does Drew need to hold on to the ball? Yeah. Does, like, that first one, does Elijah need to swing better? Yeah. Like, Elijah was getting ran over. Brian Burns was – like, isn't even known for being a power rusher. He's more of a speed rusher, and he just flattened Elijah Wilkinson.
Like he wasn't even there.
Like he wasn't even there. And so I don't know. It's just such a combination of things. I think a lot of Drew Lock's issues is he is very rough, and what's around him doesn't help him continue to grow more. Like he's too rough for what's around him currently.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't process things well at all. So there's just this huge learning curve that he has to do at a steep angle because there's people around him are communicating well as well also.
And it was just so frustrating because like weird Wilkinson not doing well. It was just so frustrating because like we watched Drew Lock to see what he does. He steps up in the pocket. Perfect. He doesn't try to run out and try to escape pressure. He steps up in the pocket. He's got an open lane and then fumble. Like, it was so perfect. And then.
Right. Well,
when he stopped, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, oh, no.
I kind of wanted to highlight something that Boggins brought up earlier, and that's about John Elway. John Elway, if I'm not mistaken, is going into the last year of his contract. So this offseason and the draft will kind of give us an inside look on what we might see from his future in Denver. If he goes out and, tries to make these, crazy signings and great draft positions and try to build the Broncos for a stronger future, then that to me kind of means like, okay, he wants to stay. But if he goes out there and he plays a conservative and, he does all the, like Mr. Boggins says, he cuts players or reconstructs contracts and doesn't really make a splash in free agency or the draft and then just keeps it, mellow, then that to me kind of serves as like, hey, you know what? I enjoyed my time here, but next year I'm gone. So I'm really hoping I've liked what he's done. I know that his last few years they've all haven't been, home runs, especially in the quarterback department, but if one thing that people need to realize, especially Broncos fans, is that just because he played quarterback does not mean that you have a sense for picking out another quarterback. That's not how it works. And I see that on Twitter.
Yes,
he picked Peyton Manning.
Yeah. So he's not gonna be the only one in the future that gets it wrong. There's gonna be players that when they retire from the NFL and if they go into being coaches or executive positions, in that regard, they're gonna make the same mistakes. So you just need to realize that guys like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and even what we're seeing in Jalen Hurts, those are guys that are just, hey, you're lucky you can find them. But then there's going to be guys like Paxton Lynch and Josh Allen and some can even say Colin Kaepernick, who just, they might have a good season or two and then they just flame out, or they don't have a good season at all.
Like what is the common denominator?
Could say Colin Kaepernick, like that was exactly Colin Kaepernick.
What's the common denominator though in a lot of these young, good-looking quarterbacks though? The coaches mold to them. Like what did Lamar Jackson? He has what's his name? Greg.
I can't remember that.
Yeah,
it's Greg something.
Yeah, he worked with Michael Vick,
Roman?
right?
Mm-hmm.
Greg Roman. Yeah, Greg Roman.
Thank you.
He worked with Michael Vick, so he knew he was like, yeah, I got you. Works with that. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray had his college coach. Like Baker's starting to finally find his play action abilities because he's not just like I mean, yeah, and I mean Patrick Mahomes is with one of the best offensive minds we've seen in how many years. So it's like you just get put in these good positions, and I don't think Shermer is more of I mean, who is he successful with, right? Case Keenum, somewhat Daniel Jones-ish, I guess. But I just see, like if Drew Lock was in like a Shanahan system or something, I think he'd be so much better off play action, off like that's just what he does. And I don't think that the Shermer scheme really works for him, but I think he needs to stay in another year instead of having another offensive coordinator. I mean, he gets offensive coordinators like presents for Christmas. Like it's just like consistent. And when someone processes as slow as he does, that's the last thing you want.
Well, and that's I've said that on multiple pods. It's like it's not one or the other; it's both. Like, like you can't sit there and tell me that Pat Shermer is not a good offensive coordinator. He has a history of being a good offensive coordinator. He's not a good head coach, but he's a pretty good offensive coordinator. And being known as a quarterback whisperer, you don't just forget how to do that. Like there has to be a reason why Pat Shermer is not able to do something with Locke. And the only reason you can really come up with is that they're missing. Like whether it's Shermer's not right for Locke or Locke's not right for Shermer, or Shermer's expecting this and Locke can only give him this. I don't know, but you can't just tell me that Pat Shermer is a terrible coach because he's not. I mean, there has to be reasons as to why we're calling these stupid plays and why they're not able to do this and why they're not able to do that. There has to be. It's not just Shermer sucks. It has to be a mix of something else. So,
go ahead, Mike. I was going to say, I think the biggest thing is that they haven't had the opportunity to really spend time together. I mean, the best example of all time for the Broncos on adapting to a quarterback is when Tim Tebow took over and Mike McCoy was the offensive coordinator. And I didn't love McCoy, but that whole offense changed to just do Tebow's strengths and Tebow's style. And I'd like to think that given one more year together, these guys, if they're sitting next to each other, and you've seen the videos of Belichick and Brady sitting across a desk mapping out strategy. They haven't had that opportunity. Everything's been digital or distanced or whatever. And I think that maybe that's where the connection starts to happen when they actually get time to spend with each other, quite honestly.
Well, and see, and this is the part that scares me is you can look at the beginning of the season and look at the season now, and you can see that there's a difference in how the offense is being played, the offense is being called. So, you're seeing that Shermer is trying to adjust to what's going on, and Locke is still doing the same things. That's the part that scares me. So I'm not saying like throw them both away. I agree. I definitely think we need to give him an off season, let him have the full off season to figure it out, give him the first couple games of next season, first 4 to 6. But if it doesn't work, there's got to be somebody behind Drew Lock other than Brett Rippon. Like I love Brett Rippon, but he's not a starting quarterback.
I'm way more willing to judge Drew after next year. Yeah, for sure. I think that it's once he finally has a full. I think he'll get more into he'll be more comfortable with working on mechanics when he actually has a playbook down. And he'll be like, oh, now that I've got that pretty much, I can kind of focus on my footwork more. And you can see him do it slightly, but it's like he's counting on his fingers the way he does stuff, and with his footwork and everything, it's like he's just like thinking it out loud pretty much, where he's like, oh, they told me I need to work on this. Let me make sure I'm doing this. You can even listen to him in the press conference, the way he talks about plays. He'll literally he'll like break it down out loud, which you don't hear a lot. It's almost like a mental thing for him to be able to say it out loud, almost like a teacher asking, "What did I say?" Say it back, kind of thing, and almost to try to explain everything, or like, see, I know what I'm talking about, or I know I'm learning. It's so that's what one of the things I do worry about a bit.
Yeah, I just hope.
Hold on, I'm gonna get this comment. George Moravi, I think I said that right. Moravi, Shermer doesn't even use his receivers well, and just found out how to use Fant. I kind of agree on Fant, but I don't agree on the receivers. And the reason why I say that is because you can see, if you go back and look at every game, there are receivers open all over the field, and they're just being missed. So I think that, and I don't agree with not having Judy in the slot. I would prefer to have Judy in the slot. I think he's a better slot guy. But Judy drops passes. He just does. He's been missing all season. You see KJ Hamler got better in the Panthers game with the 2 touchdowns. Like, the receivers are there. They're open. They're just being missed. And I think that's more of a Drew Lock not being able to go through his progressions problem than it is a scheming problem. And that's what we're hoping can get fixed.
No, and I totally agree. You also have to remember that Pat Shermer, going back to that season that Boggins was talking about in 2017, he had one of the best receivers in the league that year in Stephon Diggs. So, with Buffalo coming into town against Denver, Pat Shermer already, had an idea of just how dangerous Diggs can be.
And Thielen.
So I'm pretty sure he was laying it into his offense like, guys, we got 2 top wide receivers coming in, and if we don't keep pace with them, they're just going to come in and shred this defense. This defense that's just barely holding on for dear life. So I just hope that next season Drew Lock has all his weapons, so that way we can judge him saying, okay, you can't say it was injury this time. You can't say it was because of coaching this time. Drew is still, let's say he's still making the same mistakes. He's still staring down receivers. He's still throwing off his back foot. He's missing wide open receivers. If that doesn't change by mid-season, like Mike wants, then yeah, if you need to bench the quarterback to kind of maybe lay it into him, like, hey, if you don't shape up, you're going to ship out type of mentality, kind of like what's going on in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. So I do agree that they more than likely do need just more time just to try to get an idea of what Pat Shermer can play in his strengths with Drew Lock. Basically, they just need to be patient, just like Buffalo was patient with Josh Allen. It took Josh Allen, 3 years before he started playing at a Super Bowl caliber type, maybe even MVP. But it's patience. And it's something that no fan in the NFL has. Everybody wants the quarterback coming out of college, off the draft, to be the next Patrick Mahomes that can just sling a ball 70 yards or, run like the Roadrunner like Lamar Jackson does and whatnot. And that's just not how it is. Some quarterbacks just need time to develop.
No, I take one exception to what you said. You said, having Drew Lock play with, his full offense, his full roster on offense. The only one they're missing is Cortland Sutton.
And Albert,
which is a big one.
But Albert O wasn't expected to start.
No, he's not expected to start, but he's a bigger threat than Nick Van Nett and
I get that, but he didn't start the season as a starter, so we weren't expecting him to start. Cortland Sutton is a big one. I get that. Sutton was a big one.
Oh, okay.
But he still has Judy. He's still got Hamler. He's still got Patrick. He's still got Fant. He's still got Gordon, and he's still got Lindsey. So I get that going into a season without your top receiver sucks. I get that. But you're going into the season only down one offensive player, and we're still having all these issues. Like
you had your number one, and then you had 2 rookie receivers, and then you have, Fant, who couldn't stay healthy, Albert out. And then you had Tim Patrick, who was a Jag until this year.
I get it, but if you're going to blame injuries, I can see you blaming injuries on the defense because, good Lord, 3/4 of the defense is gone. But on offense, you're missing your number one wide receiver. That's it.
I mean, you had Philip Lindsay out for multiple games.
But every team has players that are out for random games here and there through the whole season. It happens on every team. So,
but Mike, like the Drew and Cortland really had a thing going those last 5 games of the season, and then all of a sudden for that security blanket to go, and then you have these 2 young stud receivers that they invested the high draft picks. KJ was injured at the beginning of the year as well. Fant is only allowed to get throws in the first half and be completely ignored in the second half. I think
it's
that's
a rule.
Sort of a rule. But I do. I'm as frustrated with the mistakes. And I'm going to watch the games a little bit differently too, Mr. Boggins. Like, it's almost like when you were saying he was counting off, it's almost like someone learning how to do it like ballroom dancing for their wedding reception, and they're like 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna really pay attention to that point, in the next game. But if they can get this consistency, one thing I think has to happen in the off season is we need to bring in some older guys, some veteran leadership, and I have to say to Mike's man crush, he might be right that's the guy to bring in. Fitzmagic as the backup. He's not under any illusions that he's going to be.
And Zach brought up Andy Dalton, which I could see that too. I don't know if Dallas lets him go, but
if Dallas, I don't think he's going to leave.
But if you're looking at veteran quarterbacks that can come in and step in, but not take over as the starter, you're only looking at 1 or 2. Like, that's all that's available. Because, if you go after a Stafford, he's the starter. If you go after a Ryan, he's the starter. But if you want someone that can come in and teach and then back up just in case something were to happen, you can't really go wrong with having a Fitzpatrick or an Andy Dalton or something like that, And I as much as I want them to go draft a rookie quarterback, you can't rely on a rookie quarterback either to step in. And we just had this whole conversation about being patient, letting them learn. If they're not going to get a veteran quarterback and just stick with a rookie behind Drew, nothing's going to change because we have no idea how that rookie's going to play.
And can we please stop talking about bringing Carson Wentz in? Oh my gosh!
If anything, he's going to go to Indy with Frank Reich. So the only way he's going to do that is if he restructures, because they're not going to let him go with the contract he's got. That's what's that, like $40 million in dead space?
It's funny because we were talking about that recently when he wasn't playing well, and I was like, man, can you imagine if they bench him? They bench that $30 million. If they tried to cut him, they'd owe him. I think it was like $50 million this year. Then it goes down to like $25 million next year, and in dead money. It's just like, whew, you're screwed.
See, now that is interesting. George Moravi said Alex Smith, and I love Alex Smith.
Oh, me too. But there's no way.
There's no way that Washington lets him go with how he's played and how the team has played. Because obviously they're not sticking with Strip Club Haskins.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna, I thought it was Strip Club.
Well, it was a birthday party at a strip club. He's trying to explain it.
But it's not like Washington's going to be low enough in the draft to go get a premier quarterback. They're not.
They might get Trey Lance, but I don't think he's not even close.
I don't think the top 4 quarterbacks, I'm betting, don't get past 15.
But they might be they might be beneath 15.
Maybe.
I
don't know. it depends on.
Haskins is playing now. Well, maybe
but Alex Smith is coming back though. It's only a calf strain, right?
Huh?
Well, it's only a calf strain, right, for Alex Smith? He'll be back.
He's fine unless they But you were talking about letting them go.
There's no way Washington lets Alex Smith go. And it makes me nervous anytime someone looks at his leg. But still, there's no way they let Alex Smith. He's too good, and he's like the ultimate game manager. He's like game manager on steroids. Like, he doesn't have like the Brett Favre arm,
better tie rod.
Or like the John Elway mobility, but he's accurate and he's smart and he doesn't turn the ball over.
Right.
So, but there's one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about before we go into previewing the Chargers game, and that is Wilkinson back at right tackle. I have a theory, and I want to see what you guys think.
All right, cool.
So we know how DeMar Dotson plays. he has been a solid right tackle all year. We know that we're getting Juwan James back. Mm-hmm. So my question is, do you think that since we're not going to be in the playoffs, that they've put Wilkinson in there to judge how he's going to play and to grade how he's going to play to figure out if they're going to bring him back next year?
You didn't need to bring him back just to make that judgment alone. Yeah. I personally think that he's another one of Munchak's, turnaround happy stories, kind of like Garrett Bowles was, because that to me is the only thing that makes sense on why you would risk your quarterback's health out there. Especially Mike Munchak has got to be seeing the exact same thing we're watching. There is no way he's watching that game through a different set of glasses.
Well, and that's why I'm trying to figure out why they have him back in there. There has to be a reason why he's back in there.
I've heard they like him. I've heard they really like him in the facility. So his production obviously isn't anywhere close. But Dotson's just a filler. I mean, we only got him because James bailed, and so we had to get someone in there. And he's good in pass pro. That's about it. But
he's old.
He's called the hairless wonder.
Yeah, I think they're just seeing what they got for next year as far as behind Juwan James, because they don't know if they can count on him. But I mean, we're gonna draft a tackle somewhere in the first three. So
I mean, you've got to think with putting him back in that they're thinking of not bringing Dotson back. That's the only reason why they'd put him back in there.
Mm-hmm. That I would agree with that. I think that if they had to let go either one of them just to try to save money,
which kind of sucks. I like Dotson.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we can't get Nathan Moody to play right tackle because that would be great if we could.
I don't think he's long enough for it.
Well, and
no, he's not.
I like Moody, but I think that a lot of the problem we had with Glasgow this year was because of Cushenberry. Because I mean, the same thing with Reisner. Like Reisner had a really good year last year, mm-hmm. and the only thing that changed is that he was next to Cushenberry instead of who did we have last year? McGovern? No.
Connor McGovern.
McGovern. Yeah. So the only thing that changed was the center. And I mean, Glasgow was brought in because he played good at guard. So you have two good guards all of a sudden not playing very well. The only thing that changed was Cushenberry. Yeah. So the only thing that changed was Cushenberry. And I mean, Cushenberry is the one that, he either cuts left or he cuts right and helps on the block. So if they've got to sit there and wait for him to get there because he doesn't know where he's going, that could explain why we're having such a rough time on the line. So I'm not saying that Glasgow is the answer at right guard, but I think a lot of the problems were with Cushenberry not knowing what he's doing.
Well, that's part of being a rookie. So,
yeah,
I mean, you can critique him, but you can't go, hard on him.
No. That's why I'm saying, I don't blame him for it. I'm just saying that could explain why that Glasgow and Reisner were having such issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be because they're not playing to each other's strengths at all, or maybe not yet.
Communication.
And it's communication that same thing too. So hopefully everything that Cushenberry learns this season, he needs to get better at it next season.
I mean, you have to think about
especially if he's going to be the guy. If you're going to be the one calling the shots, you need to, tell Glasgow and your all offensive line, this is the play we're going to run. If you need to be able to try to read the line, if you can, just basically not do any of the mistakes that he has done since the beginning of the season. And to me, he's shown improvement, but not like in leaps and bounds type of big. He's moving at the speed of what you would see in a rookie. So hopefully in his second year, he steps it up. And, that O-line can solidify itself stronger. I do kind of worry about bringing in Juwan James because since Juwan James opted out and he's coming back in, he hasn't been able to play with this line yet. So we might see him struggle at the beginning because he probably has to he's been out of shape for football for a whole year, for 2 seasons. So, you don't need to be a pro athlete to know that if you even miss a week or so, that can take a toll on your body, and it can take you a long time, even with off season and training camp and preseason and all that, to get back into shape. So I'm just hoping that, when James comes back, that he can go in that line and not have little to no problem at all.
I'm super confident in the line besides right tackle. Glasgow can either go from center to right guard if he needs. Then you have Muti behind him that could fill in. That's obviously really good on run blocking, not getting there on pass pass pro, obviously. And then Kush was a 3rd round rookie who had to go through COVID and he's starting. So like I didn't really expect a whole ton from him. So I think next year he'll be super solid. So I think we're looking pretty good besides right tackle next year. So we'll just kind of fill that void. Villanueva, I think, is a free agent.
Ooh, Villanueva from Pittsburgh.
If we can afford him, yeah. Okay, so
give him the money.
So we've all had our little takes on who we think the Broncos should draft first. I kind of want to I want to hear what everybody thinks as far as the pick in the first round. After seeing what we saw in Buffalo, I don't see why Denver does not reach for a linebacker. So I want to see Denver go get Micah Parsons.
Yep, that's my pick. That's my pick because, and I've been seeing it on a lot of draft predictions on social media, because that's pretty much what Vic Fangio is known for. He knows how to coach linebackers, and I believe that his coaching has made Malik Reed step up his game. Now, obviously, Malik Reed hasn't had, a Von Miller type of season, but those are really big shoes to fill. So nobody really expected him to go out there and to go be like Von or be like Chubb.
Because
he's done better than Atachu. I'll give him that. The only thing is that he hasn't shown consistency. He's only shown flashes.
You could be looking at Harris and Purcell in the front with Chubb, Johnson, Parsons, and Von right behind him. Like, how do you not want that?
Well, if you have Johnson, I don't know why you'd have Parsons out there. I mean, you're pretty much going to be – I mean, he's much more of an edge than anything. He's pretty weak in the coverage ability, but that's one of the things that I know that scouts wanted to see this year, to see how he grew in that, and then they can't because he opted out. So that's one of the things that I know that they're worried about. Dylan Moses, I think, is a little bit better at it.
That's the one. That's what I was looking for.
But Chaz Surratt is also very good. He's more of a coverage. But we also have Sternad chilling that just hurt his wrist. So
I keep forgetting about that until somebody brings it up. I'm like, oh yeah, we do have Sternad.
So if we don't do like a Micah Parsons, who do we go with first round?
It depends on free agency. Is that a cop-out?
Yeah, I would have to say its second biggest need is
Mr. Boggins.
It's cornerback. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's the problem with cornerback, though. Like, I understand wanting a cornerback, but Bouye is not necessarily gone. Callahan signed for next year. We've still got Bassie coming back. We've got Ojemudia coming back. We got maybe Bosby. I don't know what the heck they're going to do with him. But, I mean, we have 4 good corners. And like, I get the Boye situation, but they could not do corner and stick with the 4 they've got and still look pretty good.
I don't think Bouye will be back. I think Denver will cut their losses with him, especially if they go into try to save money mode type of thing. So free agency doesn't look strong in terms of cornerback unless something drastic happens where another team goes out and does cause cutting procedures and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't watch college football, so I don't know like who the top cornerbacks are. But I would like to think that that's what they pay the scouts to do. And having a defensive-minded coordinator in Vic Fangio, he should be able to convince John Elway when it's their turn to pick on the board who the best are available.
Yeah. So Marcus, do you think that Vaughn is back next year? What's your opinion on that?
I think if he restructures, if he's open to restructuring, I think he'll be back next year. I think that, I mean, his radio show interview didn't really bode well for him being open to restructuring. But I mean, I also get that he doesn't. That's not something he's kind of sore about the injury and just kind of pissed off, so he doesn't want to probably talk about that right now. And I get that, but I just at the same time, it's like I don't know. I think he'll still be there. I think they'll get something done because I think he wants to be a Bronco. He's got his chicken farm. He doesn't want to move his chicken farm out of Denver. So I think he'll finish his career as a Denver Bronco for sure. As far as the draft goes, I think we'll probably look defensively, whether it's like a Gregory Rousseau. I don't think Michael Parsons will go in top 5. We're not going to be there. Dylan Moses has been dropping a lot lately, which I don't know why, but he might even end up in late first, early second. Then there's a lot of cornerbacks, but I also think we might end up keeping Bouye because he's been semi-solid. He's been there, all the things that people have been seeing have been very contested passes. It's not like he's not. I mean, there's not much more you can do. Some of those catches are insanely good over him. So I think
Bouye makes
it just
a lot
really
of money.
Depends. Yeah, Bouye does make a lot of money. I mean, I could see them approaching about a restructure or just cutting their losses either way. It just really depends on free agency. I would almost say moving back, depending on where we are. If we're like 15 or something, I could see us grabbing I forget just a tackle, just to kind of secure that spot, just because you never know with Juwan James. But other than that, any defensive position, maybe even safety, depending on if we keep Kareem or not. But there's not a ton of great safeties that are first round prospects right now. So
George Moravi saying Caleb Farley would be nice with Levante David in free agency. I would take Levante David in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's he's with Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah.
Levante David. Oh yeah,
that guy's from Nebraska. He used to play with Sue.
Him and Shaq Barrett are down there making noise, man.
Shoot, I'd take Shaq Barrett back at this point. No, I'm just kidding.
I think Caleb Farley's like 6'2" also, so he's a big dude. I'd take that all day.
Okay, so let's go into Chargers number 2. We beat them
3 minutes to wrap it all up.
Dude, we can take as much time as we want. I don't care.
No, I'm kidding.
We beat the Chargers in the fourth quarter. That was it. Like that was close. Now I will say Denver's offense has at times looked better than it did against the Chargers, and the Chargers have looked worse than they did against the Broncos. So, I hope that I'm hoping it's more of a fourth quarter of the Chargers game, like the whole game. But you never know what you're going to get from Anthony Lynn and the Chargers. Like they're either really good or really bad.
Yeah.
If we had Callahan and Bouye like we did the first time around, I'd feel more confident. But unfortunately, the Chargers, they have a little bit of momentum coming in and, against beating two teams that we should have won against the Falcons and the Raiders. And I just don't think that that defense that we have, that secondary, it's still, that waiver defense, like we keep saying. I just don't think that that's going to be enough. The only way Denver wins this game, in my opinion, is they have to go toe-to-toe with Justin Herbert and not wait until the fourth quarter for a catalyst spark from Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon. They have to try to stay in competition with the Chargers, especially with this being a road game. And the Chargers are going to have Chris Harris Jr. back. I'm just praying that he doesn't pick off Drew Lock.
Well, here's one thing going for us. Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry, who are really the only receiving threats on that team, did not participate in practice this week.
Mike Williams is a beast.
Yeah, he's burned us so many times.
Bah. So I mean, humbug. So I mean, I get it, but the Chargers don't have the receiving weapons that the Bills have. So I'm not as concerned with the Chargers burning us in coverage as I was with the Bills. I mean, if especially with a hamstring, because those things go in and out all season once they're hurt. So
right.
And Keenan Allen, he's good, but he hasn't been Keenan Allen of the past couple seasons. So,
well, no, and the reason I say that is because Bouye in that game against the Buffalo Bills, we had a different side of Bouye that we'd never seen before. It kind of he looked like he had never played in a Broncos game before. That touchdown he gave up against Dawson Knox, instead of playing, staying in the coverage, he's just stopped and to look around for a flag. Just literally gave him the touchdown, and you just didn't see that spark or energy with him. To me, it just looked like he didn't even want to be out there. Like he was just letting Stephon Diggs run his routes, and he had like maybe one or two bad passes, but. And that to me, it really hurt me because, I was singing his praises just a week ago against Carolina. He was the hero of that game, playing such good coverage and getting the last stop for the turnover. And then he goes into Buffalo and he lays an egg. So that to me concerns me. Even without the Chargers missing their top wide receiver and their top tight end, Justin Herbert, if you don't put pressure on him and you don't force him to throw the ball and give him time to throw, he can throw the ball down the field. We've seen that, and we just cannot give him that type of time.
Yeah. Well, like George Moravi said, Hamler against CHA. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck keeping up with Hamler.
I know. I think people forget like what CHJ had become, last season with the Broncos. I'm not too concerned about him, though it was nice to see him pick off the Raiders.
That felt good.
No reason to think that he's going to have regained any sort of vintage Chris Harris Jr. Form against the Broncos. I say just
although never underestimate form though. Like he knows what he's doing. Like he can get his angles on him. He can press him. He can. I think Hamler would win in a straight out speed race for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think Hamler will still have his work cut out for him for sure.
Yeah, and I love seeing Chris Harris pick off the Raiders, but I'm going to be honest, I don't like seeing any ex-Broncos succeed anywhere else. So, not a fan.
Well, technically, he's not succeeding with the Chargers because the Chargers are also eliminated from playoffs.
But he got an interception. That's succeeding.
Devontae Booker is running well behind a really good offensive line.
Who would have known? I just hope that Drew Lock and Pat Shurmur come out with an offense and they don't play conservative like they did last week. Like I said, they need to come out and they need to throw the ball. Stop doing all these, just trying to crawl up down the field, just running all these plays down the middle. You got to let the ball fly. You got to test the coverage. This game means almost the only thing that matters in this game is just draft position to the losing team. So
there's going to be a lot of running in this game because they have Bosa and Ingram. So you have to set. You're going to have to run a bunch just to get them to lay off a little bit.
But see, we said that the last Chargers game, and Bosa and Ingram didn't do anything.
Isn't Bosa in concussion protocol?
Run. What?
Well, yeah.
Isn't Bosa in concussion protocol? He left the Raiders game.
Is he
with a concussion?
Shin concussion. Yeah, he's limited in practice.
Yeah, so he has to clear protocol before he can play.
Well, but if he's limited, he'll be back.
In there.
But like the Chargers' offensive line is not as good as the Broncos' offensive line, which is kind of makes me giggle when I say that. So and the Chargers' offensive line is not as good as the Bills' offensive line, and Justin Herbert cannot run like Josh Allen. Right. And Justin Herbert's also not a tank. He's not a tank like Josh Allen. He might he's a talented quarterback that has the talent to run, but he's not a running quarterback like Josh Allen.
If they had Keenan Allen, they could do exactly what the Bills did to us. Keenan Allen could do 80% of what Stephon Diggs can do. I mean, he would have made OJ Moody look ridiculous. So, but luckily they don't have him.
Yeah.
No, I think that with the Chargers having a weaker offensive line than the Bills and the Broncos, I think that the pass rush will help out the corners. So I don't think we struggle as much. I think we get some sacks, we get some pressure.
Maybe Bradley Chubb will be like
Chubb
with the All-Pro nod. He might be like, "Ooh, gotta prove it now. People know."
7 sacks in one game.
Hey, I honestly believe that if Bradley Chubb did not get hurt last year, that he would have been in the talks for possible Pro Bowl vote because his season last year is a little bit better than what he's doing now. And
no one talks about the Broncos, man. You know this?
Yeah.
No, everyone was talking about Nick Bosa and his rookie season, not Bradley Chubb when he got 12 and a half sacks in his
rookie season. Yeah.
And Ingram is on IR, just so you know.
Oh,
so
again.
It's just Bosa, and
Bummer. Didn't know that.
Bosa's dealing with like the concussion is why he's potentially could be out, but he was also having leg problems with his shin. So
yeah, they're not going to push it, especially in a game that doesn't matter.
Bowles is expecting to go against Bosa, though. He said today, that he just needs to make sure he's got Bosa to block.
My greatest fear is that they move Bosa over to Wilkinson. Oh crap!
Why wouldn't you do that?
Right? That's my biggest fear. Okay, so let's do who wins the game. What score do you think it's going to be?
I think Denver wins. I think that they're going to come out. I'm hoping they come out with some fire and some passion after getting their butts handed to them by Buffalo, and that's usually happened with Denver before. After a pretty demoralizing loss, Denver usually bounces back with a big statement. So I'm going to say Denver. Keep it close, 26-20, 26-23.
I hate to pick against the Broncos, but I think Chargers 27-17.
Yeah, I'm pretty torn about it. I just think this is going to be just kind of a crapshoot of a game. It's just going to be a very messy game. That's what I think is going to be a very messy game. We'll say 27-23 Broncos.
See, here's my dilemma. Anytime I pick the Chargers to win, they lose. So
you said that last week. I watched the pod. You said that last week, and they beat the Raiders.
Yeah,
I know, and I picked the Raiders.
Yeah.
Oh. See, anytime I pick the Chargers, they lose. When I don't, they win. So it's like, do I pick the Broncos and jinx it, or do I pick the Chargers and then potentially I lose another foothold in the ranking? So, I'm gonna jinx the crap out of it. I'm gonna say it's Chargers 48-3. I'm gonna jinx all over them.
The Clark boys love the 48-3 score.
That's what you should have guessed against last week.
Is that what he said?
Week.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Minds think alike. You got to throw it up there.
Yeah. Okay, so Boggins, since Christy's not here, you're picking for, so obviously you have to pick the Raiders. Glenn is winning 32-15, 6'10", and Christy 29-18. I'm 25-23. So we're split between Broncos and Chargers, Raiders and Dolphins.
Dolphins. The Raiders, it looks like they're trying to push Derek Carr back on the field, and if they do, then that probably means they don't have full trust in Mariota. But I'm gonna say
Mariota did not play bad.
No, he played pretty good. I'll give him that. He took the Chargers to their limit, and if it wasn't for that bad interception pass, Raiders win that game. But yeah, I'm gonna say Miami.
I think you got to go Miami.
Same. Miami.
Yeah, me too. Chiefs and Falcons.
I mean, we saw that the Falcons give up what should have been an upset win, and if they can't stop Tom Brady, which they're going to have to try to do again next week, then I don't see them trying to stop Mahomes. Chiefs.
Even with Tyreek Hill with a hamstring, I still think that the Chiefs are going to be dominant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know how many yards Jerry Jeudy currently has, or what he's been looking at the last game. He had over 100 yards receiving against the Falcons. What do you think the Chiefs are going to do to the Falcons? And the Chiefs have something called a defense, so I'd say,
they have players.
Yeah, I'm going Chiefs too. All right, Jerry, 24-21 Broncos. George, if Broncos win, it's because of Mundungus. Yeah. Jinx. I want to jinx him too. 31-23 Chargers. There you go, Chris. Chair, everybody's favorite Chair Force veteran right there. Landon, Dolphins 35-24.
Can't wait to blow you guys up next year for jinxing and then like reverse jinxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chiefs 42-28. Dolphins 28-24. Yeah, pretty much. Chiefs basically have a bye this week.
That's what it feels like.
All right, so that is going to do it for us. We need to go ahead and go because we got some celebrating to do with the families. So we want to, again, remind everybody that we are live every Thursday except for today. We only went live today because we didn't want to interfere with people's family time on Christmas Eve and Christmas. Every other week we go live on Thursday on YouTube, on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. On YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you'll know anytime we go live or upload a video. On Twitter, follow us at MHRT Podcast. Leave us any questions, concerns, comments. Facebook, like and follow, and Twitch, go ahead and follow us on there as well. And if Mr. Boggins' Morse code blinking lights on his sweatshirt didn't already say it, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, I lost it. I had it. Festivus for the rest of us. All those, throw them in there. Have a good holiday, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
Navidad.